part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright. You're listening to The Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman in Blue, the man of tomorrow. And with me, as always, is the man in red, the Superman himself, the man with the beard and the smiles that you can't see, Mr. James Colt. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on? Been told I have a good smile.
It always brings joy to us when you visit. Today, we are doing something fun. We have a special guest. And this guest, it's exciting for James and I because we are both fans of his podcast. We didn't tell him this before we started. And I've been listening to him for, I think, since around 2016. I want to say that's about the time. But I'm going to let him do more of the talking. We're going to welcome Scott. Scott, hello. Welcome to the show.
You peaked. I'm Batman.
Oh, we have Batman. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, like I'm on a podcast called Krypton Report. I'm like, but I'm a Batman fan, guys.
It's okay. All DC is welcome to the Krypton Report.
I just think about that
Absolutely.
scene. I just think about that scene from World's Finest Part 1, where he holds up the little Ziploc baggie. He goes, "It doesn't take much, does it?"
Oh man, good reference. Good deep references. But welcome, Scott.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So Scott. I'm tongue-tied. Jesus.
Squad, how is the squad tonight?
Scott, tell us about your podcast real quick while I take a drink of my cherry Coke.
Oh, right then. Well, currently my podcast is called the DC Squadcast. We've been around since 2015. We started off as the Suicide Squad cast, and the name has evolved over the years as the show. We started off as a weekly news and review show, but basically as the news got less fun to report from the DC film side, we just said, screw that. And now we basically do reviews, we do trailer reactions, and we've kind of branched out to where we've started little scene-by-scene shows. So currently, we are concurrently watching Man of Steel and The Batman, and we're discussing it scene by scene. So by the time we're done, we will have a 30 minutes per scene of the entire movie of both movies.
That's impressive. Like I've seen that in my feed because, as I stated, James and I are both fans of the podcast. Have been, like I said, I thought it was around 2016 that I started listening. Maybe it was 2015.
Well, no, 2016 is when a lot of people, because honestly, most people found us with BVS.
And that sounds about right because I was seeking out other podcasts that were in the same vein as what we were doing and just like listen to other people's perspectives. And, some I've stayed with, some I haven't, and yours I've stayed with.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've actually been keeping up on the Man of Steel episodes. I know I'm a number of the Batman episodes behind. But every time a Man of Steel scene by scene episode drops, I'm watching that or I'm listening to that.
Well, I appreciate that. And since I'm shamelessly plugging, I would also like to let everyone know that if you tune in at the Film Junkie YouTube channel every Sunday night live at 9:00 Central, I am the co-host of the DC Fanimated stream, where we week by week discuss every episode of the DC animated universe. We are currently about to wrap up season 1 of Superman the Animated Series after we've already discussed the first 2 seasons of Batman the Animated Series.
Nice. That does sound fun.
Yeah, so it's really going to be fun because we're about to get to that point where they started airing at the same time. So we're going to start bouncing back and forth based on chronological order between the 2 series, because I've made this intense list of this is the production order of the episodes, but then this is how they coincide with when they aired. So we're going to be bouncing back between like season 2 of Superman the Animated Series and the final season of Batman the Animated Series. And we just discuss one episode a week. So join us over there. It's been an amazing time because I am such a DCAU fan. I was literally 10 when Batman the Animated Series came out, and I have talked and know way too much about that universe for my own good.
See, that's how you feel now. But when your kids get involved in it, then it just seems like you're cool. And they're like, Daddy, you know so much. You're like, yep, Daddy knows a lot, kids.
Oh, I've already been doing that because my 7-year-old is really into the My Adventures with Superman, and it's been fun watching that week to week with him.
See, my 8-year-old, same. Like, well, I mean, both my kids. Fridays roll around, and they're both like, it's My Adventures Day, and you know, we've been making it a kind of ritual on Friday mornings. Like, we all have our family breakfast while we watch My Adventures. So we've it's been a great show. My son, he loves Jimmy Olsen's whole just portrayal and everything with it. So
Flamebird.
It's Flamebird. Yeah. Yeah, My Adventures has been great. It's a fantastic show.
I didn't know how I was going to feel about it, and I'm digging the energy.
I was just worried when they announced that it was going to be on Adult Swim, you know, and I'm like, that made me worried. I'm not going to lie. Like, that worried me just because I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Because why would you put it on Adult Swim? But my working theory is that they originally had they worked out some sort of deal to just have it on a network for exposure and then drop it to HBO Max.
Oh yeah, that was totally like some sort of, that was paperwork deal. That was a business decision.
Because I'm like, it doesn't make any other sense for it to be the way it is. But today's episode, listeners, is not just us sitting here chilling and talking with Scott about whatever we pop up, because that could be awesome and take forever. Because just from
I can't shut up
from our pre-mic conversation, I think it would be one of those adventures like, this is our 3-hour episode of us just talking with Scott about everything and nothing at all. Much ado about nothing there, Shakespeare. We actually have something unique today. We are looking back at, I've compiled 25 of the DC theme songs. These are score works and pieces of music that were created to highlight our characters that we love. Now, I'll be honest, I was working this list. I didn't want to make it too large. There's like 2 that have come to mind that I forgot.
And there's one that I am totally gonna like shame him publicly if I have to, but the fact that he left it off.
And you know what? It's okay. I will take it. So we're gonna start. Like I said, I made this list, and we'll talk about it, and we'll have fun with it. And Scott will poke fun at me for missing some things, and you know what? I'll just roll with it, because there is a lot. There's more than what you think when you sit down and you actually start doing the work. So I tried to find ones I thought were unique and would be fun and interesting to talk about. And plus, I didn't want to make like a 50, song list, and that would be intense. So that's what we're going to work on today. You boys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, huh? Let's do it. It's a little turtle reference.
I say you just went and saw that. You took kids to see that last week?
Yes, and my daughter is obsessed with Michelangelo. She has been as we did our whole Deep Turtle rewatch. So
I'm watching Secret of the Ooze with the boys tomorrow.
Nice. Yeah, I watched that one, and I was like, I said, kids, this is one that was very special to me as a child. And because we're watching it, and I'm quoting it like the whole time, like a beat before they say it, My kids are like, Daddy, how do you know all this? I'm like, kids, come on. You guys
all the stuff you know.
Yeah,
this is what I knew.
But we have had a fun time with the turtles recently, so it's been cool. But that's for another podcast. Today is we're Well, at least maybe it won't be for another podcast. I'll just have to edit it out. But anyways, we're going to get some music now. The first one that I have on my 25 musical list here is I put the Arrow theme by Blake Neely. And this one, you know, it's the music that started the Arrowverse, and it has a unique part to it. But at the same time, modern themes, and we're going to talk about this as we go, they don't have the march appeal. They're like more just like sounds. I mean, I know music is sound, but
they don't have melodies.
Right. You know, and there's a really great, I actually thought about putting this on there, but then I thought it'd be a cheat. If you have a chance to look up the Fandom music, the Blake Neely did Fandom's own theme song, which was a combination of like all the different instruments, theme songs of different superheroes. And it's really neat to hear. But I mean, the Arrow theme is longer, but what you think of when you hear it is that ding, 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 ding. I mean, that's the theme song. You know, and is that really what you want for your character's theme song? Like, I don't know. I'm talking. You guys talk. Scott, thoughts?
Well, actually, what I think about when I think of the Arrow, because Arrow didn't even, like all the CW shows, they don't even have like an opening title sequence.
Mm-hmm.
You basically got a title card.
Yeah.
Like, and so musically what you had was a cue. It's not even a theme. It's a cue, really, that lasts for about 5 to 10 seconds while the title of the show shows up for the title card. And really what I always think about when I think about Arrow is that wow sound. Like, that's what I think about when it comes to Arrow.
I mean, that is the secondary sound that I think of, like, yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, it is, you know, it's like they saw how popular Supernatural was with just the title card. They're like, we're going to do that. That's what we got. James, thoughts on the Arrow theme?
I mean, yeah, just when you listen to the theme itself, it's actually a good piece of music. But you're right. When you watch the show, you get very little of that before all you get is that long drawn out over the title card. And that's what most people think of.
Now, I'm not going to lie, though. I do own all the physical CD releases that La La Land Records did for like all these shows. And
that's awesome.
And most of them are autographed by Blake Neely, because I would order them like as soon as they dropped so I could get autographed copies of them.
I mean, that's all. Okay, so my little thing, I was blown away that
sweet.
Blake Neely was the one who did the orchestration for the S&M album, the Symphony of Metallica.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I heard that and I was like, oh, wow. Because I remember when that album came out, like my one friend in high school was a big Metallica fan. And I just had such an appreciation for the blending of like the rock music with the symphony. And then I heard that was Blake Neely. I was like, oh my gosh, that just like, I was like, that just made it even better. So moving on. The next one I have on my list here is I wanted to point this out because this was a conversation I actually had with my son about how music can be interpreted and how you can take a piece of music, you can reorchestrate it, you can change up some instruments, but it's still the same basic song. It's just that's how it can move in styles. And we listened to 3 tracks back to back to back. And he was listening and pointing out things. My son has a really good musical ear. And I put this on here because it is worth pointing out. But this is the exact title for this is On the Road. But is the Wonder Woman theme by Hans Zimmer in Wonder Woman 1984. And it is in the movie at the scene where she is on the road running after the Humvees, the trucks or whatever. And it is her theme, but it's very like big band, like horns and everything. And I really don't like it.
Yeah, I need to go back and listen to that track. I remember the day that the Wonder Woman 84 soundtrack released. But then I also remember when the Sketchbook released, and I was like, why is the Sketchbook a better album than the actual motion picture score? Because I don't know. It was like Hans did have some great ideas, because I love his Sketchbook releases. Like that's when he's like just doodling and coming up with all kinds of ideas. And I feel like a lot of things with that movie, it's like, did you get messed with, Hans? Because the Sketchbook showed me you had some really cool musical ideas for this movie.
Right. Like one thing with this theme is I was like, it doesn't feel like it belongs. And I say that in the sense of, if you wanted to do a play on the Wonder Woman theme, why not make it sound like it's from the 80s? Like,
yes,
some like synth. I mean, you're Hans Zimmer. You love synth. But it's such like a big band, like ba-da-da-da-da, like instead of it almost takes that hard edge warrior out of it and makes it cutesy. And I know a lot of Wonder Woman 84 is very much Patty Jenkins inspired by Wonder Woman 77. Like, and the tonality, but it just feels like maybe that's what they were going for with the way the theme was done. But I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest.
Well, I think based on conversations, I mean, because I had the opportunity to interview Junkie XL.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I'm sure that your podcast rating will not allow me to use the words that he referred to me and the other group of fans that were interviewing him at the time. I don't because I don't think you have explicit on your podcast.
Is it about melon farmers?
Yes, I'm a beloved melon farmer, according to Junkie XL, and I will wear that as a badge of honor for the rest of my life. But I really think that elements of the original Wonder Woman theme that we really like, I think we can thank Junkie for that. Maybe more. I mean, it was a collaboration, of course, but as I've seen Hans do it on his own, and then I've seen Junkie do it on his own, I'm wondering like whose vibe we really connected with when it came to the Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman theme.
If I remember right.
Right. Well, when Danny Elfman did it, it was nowhere near as well.
Stop.
And
Stop.
Hans Zimmer's was definitely more 80s when it came to the sound of it, but the best version is definitely BVS.
There's a reason why Danny Elfman's Wonder Woman is not on here at all.
Oh, I know why it's not on here.
Okay.
But I think if we're talking about it, we've got so many different people who have done it.
Yeah. We have
and
there's 4 versions, you're right.
There is Junkie XL and Hans Zimmer. There's BVS, there's Rupert from Wonder Woman.
Hey, we're getting him.
Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman.
I mean, we might as well just roll them all together. I mean, so we'll take this conversation, we'll roll it into now the Rupert Greggs Williamson version from Wonder Woman, the film.
Now, which track
did
you end up?
Second best.
And that's the thing. I actually just had to watch the movie and listen to it because I couldn't figure out which track it was. And that's another problem that I have with modern day creating of themes is they don't name it like theme or like march or like it's not the first track. It's somewhere in there blended in, or it's on multiple tracks done, slightly different. And that's another problem I have with the way they do superhero scoring nowadays.
But I think that's what I love about the BVS album itself is that I don't call it the Wonder Woman. I call it Is She With You? Because that's what the track was called on on the BVS album when it came out in 2016. And it's funny is that while it contains the Wonder Woman theme, it's also technically the Wonder Woman theme and the Doomsday fight.
Yes. It is like it is interesting because that guitar riff is like her theme, because
It's not a guitar riff.
oh yeah,
It's
a cello.
It's an electric cello. Yes.
Because they of course that's what plays when she shows up in everything. When she just pops up like in The Flash and in Shazam, like we got that music. That's, her identity in a lot of ways. But I like Is She With You? But I do like Rupert Gregson. I'm trying to say his name correctly.
Rupert Gregson Williams.
Yes, sorry. I like his version because he starts it with the drums more, and it's in the credits of the film. It's like one of the best ways to like hear it. But
that's called Action Reaction.
Is that what it is?
Yes, that's the name of the track that plays over the end credits. Because I'm a nerd and I know these things.
I try to, and I used to
good
know
we have you on.
I used to know a lot more than I do recently because I just haven't focused on as much. But I like his orchestration of it. That's probably my favorite because there's more to it. But you can't beat Junkies for just pure energy and emotion of like just that warrior side of the character.
Yeah. And he even expanded on that with Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think the opening of the female Lamentations, I think, gets overused.
No, I agree. I agree as well. I think I turned that into a drinking game at one point. But
right.
He's like, I don't remember the rest of the movie, guys.
But however, track 5 on Zack Snyder's Justice League, Wonder Woman Defending, I think is he talked about in that interview that I did with him about how he wanted that more rock driving aspect of that Wonder Woman theme, and you hear it. Take out the female Lamentations.
Oh, every time you watch it, especially that first time it comes up, it's just so powerful. I only say that because it's that the Lamentations part is repeated every single time. She slows down, and they do her theme music.
But still, because that's the one where it's like you get more of the guitar in Zack Snyder's Justice League versus the cello, and it just sounds. I know this is weird. It just sounds so much more badass.
No, I mean, it does. I mean, it's just simple. So, I mean, I guess that would mean what? We have 5 different versions?
I would say, okay, so we have Is She With You, which, the OG.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, I'll call it Wonder Woman Defending, even though there's a couple of tracks you can find on Zack Snyder's Justice League. You've got On the Road and Wonder Woman 1984. And then you've got Action Reaction. So 4. Yeah, because if you basically say BVS, Wonder Woman 84, and Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, we're not counting Elfman. That's cool.
No, it was very unmemorable, and I stated that outright when that movie came out in 2017.
There's only one thing I have mentioned from that soundtrack is I liked the music he did for The Flash in it.
See, my issue with the music he did for The Flash, which is a lot of problems I have with Elfman's score, is it just sounds like the Flash TV theme from the Grant Gustin show. Like, that's what it sounds like to me. Other people have also picked up the fact that it sounds a little bit like something that he used with the Hulk. Because one of the jokes is that in that score, you can also hear his Avengers theme get used.
Oh, I feel like Elfman phoned it in.
Oh, he didn't phone it in. He copied everyone's homework for that movie. I mean, I think it was an issue of because it was done so last minute. He just basically had to copy and paste whatever he could just to get it done.
I mean, it feels that way. And Yeah, because I mean, even how he tried to use like the Batman, his own Batman theme, you know, but we're not going to go down that.
Please, let's not go down
Okay.
that road.
So we're going to jump back in here now. Since we're talking Junkie, the Justice League's theme, the crew at Warhammer,
War Power.
War Power. My mistake. I'm thinking, you know what I'm
I think it auto corrected on you.
It did. What do we feel about that? I remember when that was the first track that was released, and they put it like it was on YouTube or whatever, and then it dropped to iTunes, and I had it, and I was like just listening to it. I remember I was in the shower when it first dropped, and I was just like listening to it as I'm taking a shower, and just really kind of feeling like this feels epic and big and heavy.
It felt like what Junkie said. It's an anthem. It's like I'm at the Olympics. I'm at a sporting event. Remember when John Williams wrote the Olympics theme for the 1996 Atlanta Olympics? It was.
You had me at John Williams.
Just saying. I could not stop listening to the crew at War Power when that track dropped. I remember the morning I woke up and it was there, and I was just like my Squadcast text group chat was just all of us just losing our collective minds. It was an amazing track. And it's interesting how it gets used in the film, because the first time you hear it, if I'm remembering correctly, it's not like I haven't watched that movie a gajillion times, is the history lesson.
Yeah, that feels right.
So it's the anthem of heroes coming together.
Because I always think about it towards the end, because it's playing at the end too.
Oh yeah, it's playing really slowly when they're all standing on top of the nuclear reactor, in their hero shot at the end. Yeah.
But go ahead, James.
Oh yeah, it's very grandiose. I think it's amazing to hear that song and see that Justice League standing there.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, it is like, because it leaves you with as heavy and loaded as it feels, it still has a lightness and a sense of being able to rise you up, and it's a very powerful. And that one is one of the few more modern themes I feel like that has that more theme quality to it.
Yes, because it's able to play as a motif throughout the film, and like we said, when we hear it, it's when they're being heroes, it's when they're being a team, and it works the way a theme does. Like, you hear it and you have certain associations, like, oh, that's the Justice League, or that's the way that other themes work. It's like you hear it and you go, that's who that is. Mm-hmm. And I agree. And it was really fun too when I got to go to Burbank and see it in IMAX. Of course, it's in a minor key, but it's also a major part of the intermission music that you get, because he did compose about like a 10-minute suite of intermission music that plays right after. It's between chapters 4 and chapter 5. So, the last thing you hear is, the League deciding to bring Superman back. And he's like, we're 6, not 5. There is no us without him. And then it cuts to black and intermission. And crew at War Power is basically the thematic part that's playing, as the intermission music for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
That's cool.
Man, I'm jealous. I'm envious of you getting to go see that in IMAX, though. All of you who did. If that movie ever goes to theaters, I am making that trip somewhere.
If it's in with like 3 to 4 hours, yes.
I freaking flew cross country.
I know you did, and I wanted to. I wish I could have.
And that's when James disappears and shows up at Scott's house. Like, Scott. He's like, James is electrical. He just traveled by the wires. Comes up to your microphone.
Electric Red Superman.
So why we're kind of in this bracket, I'm trying to break it up kind of in these brackets here. Let's take a step back to Rupert and talk about his Aquaman kind of theme. Because I feel like it fits in with this motif of what we're talking about here.
I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle to even tell you what it was.
See, so the Aquaman is kind of that guitar ding, 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 ding. And then at the end, it's that it's like, I think part of my problem with a lot of it is you can't really you can't articulate it and hum it, because a lot of it sounds more like sound effects than it does a melody and music. It's, and that's part of why some of these songs are on here, is for the discussion of what is the music, like 3 notes, and there's another 4-noter that we'll talk about later, but I have a different feeling about. But yeah, the Aquaman, I think it's one of those that as you watch the film, you'll kind of like, oh, that's it. But then it doesn't really, you're like, but that's it.
I was listening to a track from Aquaman earlier, and it was slow, and it was, playing to a rise, and then all of a sudden it changed to kind of like sound like party music. And I was like, what's this? Before it kind of went a little more orchestral again. It's like, that's kind of an awkward, maybe it fits better with the movie, as it were, when you're watching it.
Well, and I think what we're dealing with, and I was literally having this discussion Friday night, is that when we're in this, I would almost call it the Hans Zimmer school of movie scoring, it is music that primarily works really well as underscoring for a movie, but then lacks something as music that you would listen to, as just a musical piece. Now, I'm not saying that about Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer manages to like thread that needle and like do both.
Yeah, but you have like people like, was it Steve Jacoby? That's very similar, that you hear his stuff and you're like, oh, that sounded like Hans Zimmer now, wasn't?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the music doesn't work. Like, you don't buy the soundtrack album afterwards, because it's like, that's nothing to actually listen to.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Because Steve did the Super Pets score, and I listened to it and I was like, nothing's really popping that I want to kind of go back to. It's weird, but all right. So here we're going to talk about Shazam. We have the Shazam theme from the first movie, that was Benjamin Wallfish, and then we have the Shazam theme, which is called Shazam Champions, from Christopher Beck. And what's interesting, in the Shazam theme from the first film, Benjamin Wallfish is I really enjoy his music, but I feel like a lot of times his composing is it has a darkness to it. He did do the score for It and some other horror films.
He also did Blade Runner 2049 with Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
And he also did The Flash.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and then he recently did The Flash, and even in his music for The Flash, there's this melancholiness, I guess I could say, to it. But then Christopher Beck, his music for Shazam Fear the God, I think is good. His theme, it's got horns, and it's like dun 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 dun, but it sounds thin and small. Almost as if like his orchestra was maybe like 5 or 6 people, instead of being this really big, thick sounding orchestra. It's very interesting to listen to, because I'm listening to the music, I'm like, I like this, but it sounds almost like a rehearsal and not the full orchestra going. And I don't know if that's because we've gotten used to these overbearing, Hans Zimmer styles or what.
Or is it a case where was there an orchestra at all? Because sometimes, you can have a orchestra sounding score that's entirely synthesizer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, literally, there was no orchestra for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, that's Junkie XL with his computer suite, and any actual instruments that you hear was him playing them.
Yeah.
And then him doing all the mixing. And Junkie, however, has got years, and he's compiled this library. It's like he can do that. Like, he can take a completely synthesized score and make you think you're hearing an orchestra.
I remember years ago when I had Guitar World magazine, and it was an interview with Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park talking about recording of Meteoria and how it was the first time they got to actually record with live strings. And at first I didn't realize what he meant because they were talking. And then as I read more and I realized, oh, that's because all the orchestration and stuff was synthesizer on the first album. And now they were actually had an orchestra playing back to their music. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's a thing,
Well, and it's kind of like something that I had to deal with, with the animated universe, where you go back to those original episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and they were able to swing it where they had a live orchestra recording for every individual episode of that show. And then by the end, it was all synthesizer stuff, and it just doesn't quite hit the same when you've been spoiled with the fact that you've had, a full orchestra for every 20-something minute episode of an animated series.
Yeah. It's like they won't notice. Who pays attention?
Me.
Yeah. there are us people. So it's very interesting now. Now, continuing in this family, we'll talk about the Black Adam theme from Lorne Balfe. Is that
Balfe?
Balfe. Okay,
Lorne Balfe.
I've never heard the name said out loud, so I'm like, I'm gonna wing this. That is actually a really good theme.
I have to agree with you. I actually bought the Black Adam soundtrack album. Now, before the movie came out, but I actually bought it just based on hearing the Black Adam theme and his Justice Society theme.
Yes.
Now, I bought it digitally. It was not, it didn't compel me to get the physical release. Like you have to commit for me to go, oh no, I want to buy you on CD or I want to buy you on vinyl. Yes, I buy vinyl.
That's
Sue
cool.
me.
No, that's dope. I have to rebuild my music collection because I sold so much of it years ago. Side story: when I was in a band and we were recording, and I needed more recording money, so I sold a lot of stuff I had. But we don't talk about that too much anymore because of other things.
But Lorne Balfe is also a really good composer.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 and listen to the score to that movie, and
I have not
kills
listened to
it.
I listened to the theme because that was another conversation Solomon and I were having about. I was showing him like every Mission Impossible movie as we were working through the themes from each one, how different composers and different style, but it's still the same song. But I haven't listened to the Dead Reckoning whole thing until I see the movie. I just haven't got a chance to go see the movie yet.
It was one of those cases where during the movie, my wife even turned to me and went, "The music is really good."
I was surprised by the Black Adam theme because you have layers to it, but it doesn't sound like it's a bunch of noise thrown together.
Yes, I agree with you.
It's like you have that
there.
dun 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 you know, on top, and then you have like the vocal of da 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 da, like.
But it has a melody, like you hear that da 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 da,
Yes.
like you can hum it, like
Yeah, I like the Black Adam theme.
And I mean, it just feels big and badass. I mean, like, it feels like what you would think of like Sonic Black Adam, you know, and that I think is what we're digging at here with the conversation is what is a sonic sound that represents the character that when you hear it, you're like, that feels like the character.
You know, we haven't gotten to all the Superman themes
Oh
yet.
no, we're going to.
Right, but it's kind of like when you get to the Superman themes, and it's kind of become the tradition of what's the one thing that every Superman theme has to have?
What's that, Scott?
It melodically has to say Superman in some way.
I wanted you to say it, not us. So,
But yeah, I don't care who writes the Superman theme. You know, there is some way that you can still hear Superman being said
and
in the music.
we're not to this one yet, but we'll get there. But just bring that back up when we get to Superman the animated series.
You want me? I will start singing it for you right now. Is what's going to happen.
Because I actually did a little tweak to it, and I'll tell the whole story when I get there. So I think as we're moving through here, I have a couple of them kind of tucked away. But one I want to touch on was Henry Jackman's theme song for The Suicide Squad. Because I find this so interesting. Because this theme song, it feels like a band making a scratch track in their garage.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's in the movie when they're doing the famous walk out to get, go on the first missions, like ding 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 ding, and you just hear the drums kind of pop 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 boom, like it sounds like a scratch track that you're recording before you go record your actual song and put vocals on top of it, like the demo track you make to show your buddies in the band before you make the real song.
Yeah, and I feel like, and that's something that happens a lot with James Gunn movies, is that I never pay attention to the score because it's always about the needle drops.
And I will be on record right now, that is one thing I'm worried about with Superman Legacy. I don't want needle drops.
I was going to say, I'm wondering if this upcoming, because it's the same thing with the MCU. It's all about the songs that you hear, the songs that you associate with the movie, with the trailers, with the movies themselves, all the needle drops throughout the films. Are they going to go back to having these soundtracks instead of scores again?
I will say this real quick, but I don't want to talk too much on the other side, but we can hit on it. It's fine. Alan Silvestri's theme for the Avengers is baller.
Oh, no. Alan Silvestri, because he did both Captain America: The First Avenger,
yes,
and Avengers. I mean, and those were back-to-back movies.
And they're awesome.
And they are amazing.
And my son and I did this YouTube thing where it's like you get like 10 or 15 second clips of a song for like the theme music from a movie, and you got to guess the movie. And he, like I said, he has an ear for this type stuff. And I was talking about just how great Alan Silvestri is. And then we talked a little bit about how there was this error of like Brian Tyler, where I think the man's talented, but like his Turtles score, his Thor: The Dark World, and I think like part of his Iron Man 3 score, like you could just throw them all together and you wouldn't know what's what. Like they all sounded so much the same that you wouldn't know which movie was which just by listening to it.
But, I mean, when you get the guy who does, The Predator and Back to the Future.
Yeah, but then that's weird. But then it's
Avengers.
also. But then it's weird that he also was the guy who did 300 and Watchmen.
But Watchmen had the guy who also worked with Trent Reznor. Not Atticus.
No. You're thinking about the TV show. I'm talking about the Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah, it was.
Brian Tyler did that theme.
I thought it was Brian Tyler and somebody else.
No, it was just him.
Was it?
Because I have the vinyl for that. But once again, what do most people think about when you think of that movie? They think about the needle drops.
Well, I mean, Watchmen, lends itself to that a little bit because it's historical. But yeah,
it's also because they're all songs that Alan Moore directly references in the graphic novel. That's the fun part about those needle drops.
It's Tyler Bates. It was Tyler Bates that did.
Tyler Bates, yes, yeah. I'm getting that confused. Then okay,
I knew. I was like, I have to look this up.
Thank you for fixing that though, because I think that's what my brain does. Is I get Tyler Bates and Brian Tyler. I get confused with those two.
It's okay. I get confused on stuff too. And I was like, wait a minute. I know because I just remember because Watchmen, the score is very similar in the sense there's no music in it that I could point out to you. It's very sound driven, and I think Snyder lends himself to that a lot. In most parts, and I say most parts because we're getting somewhere.
Well, yeah, most part of his story is also told through the composition, the music. It's told through so many different layers of what you see and hear.
And I think that's a filmmaking choice compared to just
absolutely.
All right, let's get back to this list here. All right, so we're gonna go now, and we're gonna talk a little bit more Blake Neely, because I have a couple more to kind of pull up here, and then we're gonna kind of segue into. I'm trying to do them by clusters, so it flows a little bit, but Blake Neely, I think what was interesting is he pretty much was scoring all of the Arrowverse, and then started getting help on each show. And
except for Arrow, I feel like Arrow was the one that he stayed pretty solo on, because I would watch the credits on, when I was still watching the Arrowverse, and he's stuck with Arrow, but yeah, he started getting help on all the other shows,
like the Legends of Tomorrow theme. I think that was a really good theme. I almost feel like the theme was better than the show.
I don't think that. I know that.
I have I don't like to be a hater on anything. I don't like to be negative. It's part of me. But to me, Legends just went off the rails and didn't feel like a DC show anymore at all. And there was so much potential baked into that show, and they just kind of squandered it. But I think the theme was beautiful. It had a very upliftingness to it.
Yeah, my problem with Blake Neely's scores in general, with the exception of maybe his Flash theme.
Man, that's where we were going next. I love his Flash theme.
Because it's a theme. I can hear, I go, that's the Flash. That's what my...
It feels like, even in the craziness, it feels like the character because it's such a speed thing. And it's like this Flash is building up to run. Because you have the...
Yeah, you have that speedy, that...
Yes. I used to say that sounds like my son as a song when he was younger because he's just everywhere. I love Fastest Man Alive by Blake Neely. I think that's his best. The song gives me chills. When it speeds up and it slows down to just the piano and the boom, boom. I think it's his best.
I like the upliftingness of the Supergirl theme song.
Yeah, buddy.
Probably just a tad more. So it would be like Supergirl, The Flash, Legends, and then Arrow. If we were looking at those shows.
Yeah, I still think that I feel like the Flash, as far as composing is concerned, it's his best work because it's the most melodic. It's it kicks.
Yeah.
It's a soundtrack I would listen to because I loved buying even when they would do the crossovers. I got the Arrow versus Flash crossover album.
Nice.
Or his Meet the Music Meister theme that he did for the duet episode.
I love that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes of the Arrowverse.
My wife's ringtone when I call her is "Run Home to You."
Well, see, funny enough, my wife's ringtone on my phone is she with you?
Nice. You're like, she is with me, guys. She is. Okay. So now we're gonna have a couple, like, we're gonna move into. I pretty much have it now down to like the big families, is what I'm gonna call it. So we're gonna move into the Bat family.
Yes, this is my bread and butter.
So we're gonna start with Batman 66.
Batman.
How ridiculously simple and catchy is that? But yet,
Oh my God, my 3-year-old can sing it. I mean, like literally, I have a video over my wife, and now every time my 3-year-old hears the word Batman, my 3-year-old goes na 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 na.
And how much more prouder can you be as a father?
I really can't, because like that was the video that my wife sent me while I was in Los Angeles. It was him going na 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 Batman, love you, Daddy.
Yeah, I have one of those. I have one of those memories of being like that 3-year-old and just seeing Adam West Batman syndicated on TV, and you get the na 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 Batman, and you get all the bang, pow,
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, because you got that.
Everybody's known that one.
Oh God. Oh, and then and let's not and do not shy away from Nelson Riddle's score for the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Nelson Riddle, who did orchestrations for Frank Sinatra's Capital Years albums, composed the score for that 66 movie, and it's a banger.
It is a good score. I'm like sitting here thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's a solid part of the film. Without it, the entire movie would be. It lends itself to the camp of the movie itself
because it's got that swinging 60s brass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking about it right now in my head. I'm kind of yeah. Now, sticking, like I said, we're doing Batman. We're going to go to one that I think sometimes doesn't get the credit it's deserved, but I really enjoy Elliot Goldenthal's Batman Overture.
Oh no. Dun 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 dun.
I mean, I was 10 years old when Batman Forever came out. So, like, I mean, as a 10-year-old, that's your movie. The height of Jim Carrey, that movie came out. That was like, even though Elfman's Batman theme is iconic, like that, when we heard that at that age, we knew exactly that was Batman.
I mean, one of my favorite scenes in Batman Forever is when Batman's on the roof and he looks down and sees Two-Face and he takes off and he just jumps. And he's jumping down the building and like his cape goes up behind him and it's to the theme, and of course, it's the same overture used in Batman and Robin. It's the Schumacher era theme, but I love it.
No, it's a legit theme.
If you can separate like the films, because everyone has an issue with one or both the films, and just listen to the music, like it starts lower with that like build up, like like it's great.
It sounds like Batman.
Yes, it does. And like I said, I just feel like it doesn't get the love and respect that it deserves.
Because too many people want to throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to anything that has to do with the Schumacher movies.
Yeah.
Even though I'm one of those people who has the controversial opinion that I would rather watch Batman Forever than Batman Returns. So,
see, I have grown to appreciate Batman Returns more over the past 5 years, 4 years, whatever. But I still love Batman Forever. And I've loved hearing people debate that Batman and Robin is better because tonally it knew what it was going to do, where Batman Forever felt like it was a little sporadic with tone. And I can appreciate those arguments. But Batman Forever, just like James, like I was 10 years old. and it locked in for me. And that was my Batman movie. Like, if someone says, "What's your favorite Batman movie?" Batman Forever. It's not I don't think it's the best Batman movie. But I just have so much of that nostalgia.
I would say it's
into
peak. Yeah, it's peak nostalgia for Batman for that era of Batman.
Because there's more action in Batman Forever. You do have Robin, who does basically nothing, but he's there. And
you have Jim Carrey. Batman's actually kicking and doing some like cool stunts.
So compared to just like turning his head.
No, turning his body because he couldn't turn his head.
So I mean, you're not alone in your conversation, Scott. Here, we got your back. So
that might be one of the best jokes from The Flash when Barry
Yes.
tries to turn his head in the mask.
I laughed. Not gonna lie.
I will say that I laughed and clapped at the end of The Flash when the only true cameo that I consider in the movie appeared.
Yes, I did the same thing.
I was like, that's great. Like, you've already like done craziness with this movie. That is just the icing on the cake for what the zaniness is. But,
Oh yeah, I audibly chuckled at that one.
So we're gonna stick with Batman. We're still doing Batman here. We're gonna jump over and do The Batman by Michael Giacchino.
I love it. I love that theme.
I love it's back to, like I said, the 4 notes. It's
Dun 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 dun.
I taught my son how to play it on piano, and it's like he loves it because it's so simple. As long as you get the rhythm, you know. And
because
then,
it's like you used to learn about motifs like Peter and the Wolf. You know, Peter and the Wolf is a piece of music that they use in school to teach you because every character has an instrument.
yes.
But in the film The Batman, every time you hear that, you're like, y'all about to get effed up.
Yeah, it feels like he's coming up behind you.
It's like the Jaws theme. It's
Yes.
like he's a monster and he's coming.
That's the other
Yeah,
show.
instead of stalking the depths, he's stalking the shadows.
And then you listen to like on the album, like how, like it starts with just that like piano rumble, and then it builds up with this orchestration, and then at the end when it crescendos, like you have all the instruments playing it, and it just feels so big, and then it comes back down to just that piano. I love it. Like I remember driving home back in early 2020 before the shutdown, and Giacchino had like tweeted out, or maybe it was Reeves had tweeted out, it was like the costume test of Pattinson with a scratch track of the score.
Yes.
So it was just the piano part over top of like Pattinson standing in the suit in the red light, and we didn't see the full body suit. And I just remember hearing that, and it was so catchy, and I was like, wow, I really can't wait to hear this score.
Well, it's also a score that at the end of the album, you have 3 tracks that are just themes.
Yeah.
Because you get the Batman, you get Catwoman, and you get the Riddler. And I love that I get to listen to the album, which is the music you hear in the movie. And then there were like suites at the end of to your earlier point that how we don't get those anymore. Well, Giacchino did 3 of them.
I know. I was
on the Batman album.
I was going to bring that up. How with the recent, Black Adam and the Batman, and I think Batman himself really lends heavily to the idea of theme. Even though I think sometimes the Ben Affleck theme gets lost in the music. Exactly, like there's no like really specific track. Other than what is it like? Even the Men Are Still Good track, like, is more than just his theme. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But I think Batman serves well, which takes me to next Hans Zimmer for The Dark Knight, which is technically Molasses. Am I saying that right?
Yes, from the Batman Begins.
Yes, because it carried through all 3 films. But
that one's hard for me because it is a theme, but try to sing that. Like,
yeah,
it's hard.
Blunk, blunk,
Blunk. Dun, dun. Yeah, I mean, just yeah.
Like
It's like I can hear it and I can go, it's Batman from the Nolan movies, but I can't.
It's beautiful to listen to there, but like right now we're struggling with like if someone just heard that, they'd be like, "Are you guys okay?" Yeah, but
I was say it's like the movies. It only fits in that universe.
It is very
You
true.
know what I mean?
Yes.
It is.
The music is just like the movies.
and that's important because of course the last Batman track I have here is Batman's March from Batman 89 by Danny Elfman, which in a lot of our minds is Batman. Like that is, if I had to rank the 2 greatest superhero theme songs of all time, this would be number 2. You hear it, it's moody, but it has this energy. And you can put that music behind images of any actor playing Batman, and it's Batman. You know, compared to what we just said about Zimmer, like you couldn't really watch, I think, The Batman and have Zimmer score, it wouldn't work. But you could listen to the Batman March to Christian Bale's Batman, and it still works.
Which is funny because have you seen the video of putting the Batman 66 theme behind Pattinson's Batman?
No.
Oh no. Do the Batmobile chase with the Penguin?
Yeah.
It's freaky how well that works.
Well, I mean, my thing is, Reeves is a big fan of Batman 66.
Oh, but look who the villains are in
Exactly.
the movie.
He told us.
He told us.
One of his earliest posts on Instagram, I think it was, maybe Twitter.
Twitter. It was Twitter. It was Twitter.
He was in front of the Batman 66 costumes of the villains. He took a picture from Batman the movie, and they're all in the Batman. It's just a much darker version, but it's those same characters, like even the Joker. And
for better or worse.
Hey, I will say that after doing Batman scene by scene, I have come to, and I've had it confirmed for me, exactly where the deleted scene was supposed to go.
Okay.
Like, I had a theory. When Matt Reeves released the deleted scene, I was like, oh, it has to be here. And if you watch the deleted scene on Max, they edited it in, like, they give you the tail seconds of the scene that's actually in the movie that the deleted scene would have followed, and I nailed it.
Where is it?
Okay. It's right after Batman and Gordon in the morgue finding the rat maze with the commissioner.
Okay.
And then he goes to Arkham to talk to Joker, and then the next scene would have been him with Selina putting the contacts in her eyes before she goes into the Iceberg Lounge.
Okay, I'm going to go rewatch that later with that in mind.
Yes, do that. And if you watch the deleted scene as the special feature that's on Max, they show you the tail end of the Gordon scene in the morgue, and then it runs right into the deleted scene.
Okay, cool. I always watch it on my Blu-ray. So that's
me too.
While we're here, the look of the Joker in the movie is so hidden, but my working theory was, he fell into the acid and like his body's healing. So I just hope that if he did do the Joker in the future, it wouldn't be this super grotesque Joker. That there'd be at least some sort of, like, I don't know. I just don't want to, like, disgusting looking Joker. So.
But the going back to what started this whole conversation, the Elfman theme is iconic. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I will say this about the Elfman theme. As it stands in the 89 film, it's very Elfman. So I have come to subjectively feel that it's a little over orchestrated.
Okay.
There's too much going on. Now, this comes from the fact that what I've heard more in my life is the way that Shirley Walker rearranged it for the opening title sequence for Batman the Animated Series. And it's a little bit more cleaner and to the point.
I agree with that.
And I think it works better.
Because when I was younger, I kept thinking, like, isn't that the Batman movie theme? Or is it a little different? Like, because I didn't know, and I'm listening to it, and I really didn't I didn't really have a way to sync them up,
Yeah.
I
It's so close.
Well, it is Elfman's theme,
yes,
but it's Shirley Walker's reorchestration or rearrangement of the theme.
and
it doesn't have all the like the flutes like fluttering in the background, and there's a lot. Go back and listen on the Score album. Listen to the 80, because it's funny, like that's the ringtone on my phone is the 89 version of that theme, and it's busy. And there's something about Shirley Walker's reorchestration for the Batman the Animated Series. It's just cleaner.
Right, more pleasing to listen to.
Yeah, because it's the theme without all the business.
yes.
Because listen to any Elfman score, especially like Golden Age Elfman, like 80s, 90s. I mean, even
Spider-Man.
Even Spider-Man. Go back and listen. It gets busy.
I don't like his Spider-Man score because of what you like. It sounds like he just gets lost in his own. Now,
controversial opinion. The Amazing Spider-Man are the best looking Spider-Man movies, especially 2.
It is.
Oh, I think cosign.
It is. Like his suit looks like perfection. The cinematography, the just look and everything is perfection. I saved one little thing about Elfman here to talk about is what he would score for the 90s Flash.
Yes. Oh, I own that album. I watched that show live. Like, I was 10 when that show came out.
So I was young. And I watched it here and there because it was one of those, like, I wanted to watch it, but we could never remember where it came on because they kept moving it. But I did watch some of it when it was live. And that theme, it's cool, but it's like he just made a third-rate Batman version for TV.
No, I will agree with that. But to her credit, while Danny Elfman wrote the theme, Shirley Walker composed the episodes,
which makes the episode music so much better.
Right, because I have been, especially with what the Batman the Fanimated Stream, which become the DC Fanimated Stream, I have made it my personal mission in life to preach the gospel of Shirley Walker.
She doesn't get enough credit.
She does not. And this is what I wanted to call you out on. You did not include her Batman theme because she wrote.
You're right.
A Batman theme.
You're talking about like when the cartoon comes on, and it's the Batman and Robin adventures when they kind of rebranded.
But yes, that's her theme. But you hear that the only time you hear Elfman in the animated series is the opening title sequence. The Elfman theme never plays in an episode, like while the episode is playing, because this is Shirley Walker's Batman theme. It's really famous because you hear it in the opening credits of Mask of the Phantasm. And it's the dun 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 dun. It's not Elfman.
You're right.
It's Walker.
And I do apologize. I told you I would miss some, and you're right. That is one that I overlooked because I thought about the animated series, but then I was like, no, that's we'll talk about it in the Elfman discussion. But I should have put the Shirley Walker on there. You're absolutely right.
But you make a common mistake. People think about the opening title sequence and never think about, but what about the music that's actually in the episodes themselves?
Right. And you brought up Mask of the Phantasm, which is that music is so fantastic for that movie.
I spent the money on eBay because La La Land Records did a limited edition expanded archival release
Those
of
words.
of the Mask of the Phantasm soundtrack, because the soundtrack that you can commercially buy has shortened tracks and not all the music you hear in the movie. And they did a limited edition soundtrack release that, unfortunately, by the time I discovered La La Land Records, it was already sold out, and it never has gone back into print. So I just found somebody who was selling it on eBay who actually didn't want to, gouge me terribly. And I bought it because, that Phantasm score it's why I say Mask of the Phantasm is my favorite. And it not only my favorite, I think it's the best Batman movie ever.
All right, then you're going to appreciate this, Scott. Last September, Cinemark Theaters put in Batman Mask of the Phantasm 89 returns back in theater for Batman Day. I took my kids, my son and my friend Brian. We did the triple feature. My daughter, she went and did Mask of the Phantasm. One of the best times at the movie theater ever. My kids love Batman, but turning to watch their faces when the Phantasm is revealed, priceless. They were so caught off guard, could not believe it, and just the jaw drop on their faces was awesome.
Oh, and talk about a theme, the Phantasm's theme in that movie with the theremin.
Yes, I was gonna say so much that my son loved that movie so much that when we did our past recent episode where we talked about McFarlane figures that we want McFarlane to make, Phantasm was, I think, his number 1 or number 2.
Oh, when the Funko Pop for Phantasm came out, you better believe I jumped on that. It's like, I must own this Phantasm Funko Pop. So yeah, so much love for that Mask of the Phantasm score, because that is 100%. There is no Elfman in that. That is unadulterated 100% Shirley Walker.
Rest in peace.
Yes, rest
she
in
was
peace.
Amazing. Like you said, does not get the credit she deserves. All right, so now it brings us to our last chunk, which is, if you haven't guessed, it is our Superman family chunk.
Oh, why would you save Superman for last on the Krypton report? I have
Who
no
knows?
idea.
Maybe I'm crazy. The first one I want to say is actually Supergirl. The overture from Supergirl, the movie.
Jerry Goldsmith.
Yes. I really enjoy it. I find it's a bright, kind of fun.
It's peppy.
I was gonna say colorful, upbeat, good piece of music.
If you watch Supergirl the movie, knowing that they were trying to make it like a fairy tale, the music has a very dreaminess to it.
The ballet, the flight ballet, is got some of those beautiful music in that movie. Like when she learns to fly for the first time.
Yes. It's one of those things that I think the music is relaxing and it's beautiful.
It's Jerry Goldsmith. The man doesn't miss.
It's true. I'm trying to remember. I was listening to someone talk about a movie he was going to score and didn't, and he ended up doing this instead. And I can't remember what it was. I don't remember.
There's a lot of things to say about the Supergirl movie, but the music doesn't miss.
Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. We've talked about James. We've recorded a commentary that was very fun on the Supergirl movie.
Which cut though? Because there's 3 cuts.
Whoa.
I think it's the one on. I think I watched it on Max.
And
HBO Max at the time.
I watched both cuts because I have the Warner Archive.
I have the Warner Archive as well. Yeah, because that one comes with the 3 cuts, because you get the theatrical, the director, and the international. And the international, I think, is kind of like the accepted, that's the preferred one.
Yeah,
is the international cut.
Yeah, because I remember, I think we just watched the theatrical. That's what was on Max for James, and I had watched the other 2 painfully and took notes, and we
yeah, it's what we did a commentary on with the ladies.
Yeah, with my wife and his girlfriend for New Year's Eve, 2 years ago. That was our podcast special. That's how we rang in the new year. So now that we're done with Supergirl, we're gonna jump back real quick to Shirley Walker for the Superman the Animated Series theme.
Dun 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 dun.
Now,
Because once again, Superman.
but for me, it says something else.
What's it say?
For me, I bought Superman the series when my son was born. Like I bought the whole collection, and I would stay up and I would watch it when I was up with him feeding or whatever, and I would sing it. But it was Solomon, Solomon, my son Solomon, like, and that's how I sang the theme. Like as I would like kind of rock him to sleep at night, trying to get him to go to sleep. So I'd stay up watching that, and I put his name to it. So
That's fun.
that's my little dad story there.
Now, one thing I would like to bring up, since we've been having such a Shirley Walker, honorable mention to the theme that she wrote for the new Batman Superman adventures, which is an awesome theme that's like, you want to hear what it's like to put Superman and Batman together at the same time.
Dun, dun,
And
dun,
sound-
dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. That's the one.
Dun 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 dun.
I just wanna make sure we're on the same page, yeah.
Dun 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 dun. I mean, what an amazing piece of music to go. Yes, this sounds like both of the characters at the same time.
It does. I love it's like you said, because rolling into like just the the Superman themes, like the Lois and Clark Superman theme is how it starts like it's like I just thought of something funny, sorry. One I didn't put on here for good reason, but is the TV Superboy theme. Like, cause it's so 80s.
It is so 80s. It really is.
But like the Lois and Clark is like how it has the dun 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 dun, like, and it's once again like it feels like Superman.
And
Yeah.
it says Superman.
Yeah, it feels like it comes right off the heels of John Williams.
God, but yet the Lois and Clark, which was appointment viewing every Sunday night for me on ABC. So John Byrne, so
Yes.
post-crisis. I loved it. I loved Lois and Clark.
See,
yeah, me
the
too.
problem in my house, and you might remember this, was when in my house when Lois and Clark came on, that's what I wanted to watch, but my mom wanted to watch Sequest DSV, so sometimes we had a battle.
Oh no, there was no battle. Like, no, Sunday nights, I was watching Lois and Clark on ABC. NBC could just shove it. So
Yeah, but we liked both of the shows, but my mom liked Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain, so
I like Terry Hatcher too. Thank you very much.
right.
For reasons.
For reasons.
Yes.
It's a little inside joke because we were doing a ranking of like our favorite versions of certain live action characters, and our guest friend Levi, he was talking about Journey Smollett. He said for reasons, because my son was on there with us, and my son didn't quite catch what that meant at first. I had to explain. He goes, "Oh, okay," but we just kept joking throughout the rest of the podcast, like for reasons.
Reasons.
Yeah.
So Superman, now this one is we're kind of shifting now. We have a couple left, but I appreciate the music for Superman and Lois.
Dun dun. Yeah, the Blake Neely one. Yeah. Dun 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 dun.
The one that they released. That's, hold on, I want to say his name correctly. So give me just a second. I don't know. It's been a long day, so my brain's starting to slow down. Dan Romer, who did the first season of Superman and Lois. Actually, he's done all of it. But the track is "Who I Was Meant to Be," and it's
Ooh, I have to check this out.
It's such a like. The last seconds of the song is in the title card of the series.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
The boom, like the big horns. But if you listen to the track, it almost like it comes out of nowhere because it starts so soft. Like it's it's the music that plays at the beginning of the pilot episode, all the way up until the title card, and then it shifts. But it's so interesting, and I mention it because it doesn't say Superman in it, but it has such a similar feel to the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel theme, and that's
Well,
where we are now.
Yes. Well, it's also because, on DC TV Squadcast, which is our, it's on hiatus right now, but it's our television podcast at Squadcast Media. We have famously referred to Superman and Lois as Man of Steel 20 years later.
I mean, Superman and Lois, and I've said this, is like they took the best of all Supermans and put it in a blender.
Yes, thank you. Because it honors every era and aspect of the character.
Yes.
I love Superman and Lois so much. It's about as appointment viewing as TV is. It's really almost the only appointment viewing as far as superhero television is for me these days.
I don't blame you. If I always buy the seasons digitally and then buy them on physical when they come out too, because I love the series. I want to support the show, but I don't have cable or anything. So, my wife and I always watch it together. We don't watch it without each other. We watched the first season and with our kids, most of the second season. Third season we watched just me and my wife, except for the Doomsday Battle. My son loves Doomsday, so I showed him that, and he was hooked. Like, he was locked into that.
By the way, tangent. I still love the fact that they introduced Bizarro by pulling a bait and switch, making us think it was Doomsday. And then by the end of season 3, they make Bizarro into Doomsday. I just was like, I appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Tom Helbig is very, very wise in his writing. Like, listen to him talk. He knows he's got a game plan.
I mean, if it was planned and everything, how it seems like it's a fantastic like bait and switch, foreshadowing of him actually becoming Doomsday. Still, the only thing that I hate about it is he came out huge and hulking like he was Doomsday, and then he's Bizarro, who is like the same size as Tyler, same size as Superman, who is not huge and hulking.
I know you complain about it all the time.
Yes, visually it was wrong.
And yes, tangents are perfectly fine. we do that often. So,
really, one of the only things that has ever bugged me about the show in its entirety.
But the Hans Zimmer Superman theme, and the track that I specifically pointed out because, once again, his theme is kind of sprinkled throughout the...
Can I say it?
Yeah.
It? It's my favorite track on the entire album. But what are you going to do when you're not saving the world?
Yes, that has been my ringtone since Man of Steel came out for my alarm in the morning. I wake up to that every day. It has the perfect, like, light melody to start to wake up to that just builds as you try to wake up.
Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Oh God, the guitars on that one. Yes.
I just, I love the softness to it when it starts, and just it's so simple, but yet there feels like there's so much emotion behind the notes.
Ba-dum.
The movie opens up with those same notes played differently, in Krypton. Like, it's very deep and boom, boom. But then when you do it on the piano later, when it's just that high, it just resonates so strong, and I love it. If I had to rank, like I said, like number 2 greatest superhero theme would be Batman: The March by Elfman. I would put this as number 3 because it emotionally speaks to me that strongly.
I can just remember in 2013 listening. I got the Steelbook soundtrack.
Yes, because it had the extended. Because the actual score does not have that song on it. It's the extended score, I think, that has the Steelbook and everything. That was like
the Steelbook has no. What are you going to do when you're not saving the world? Is the last track on the regular soundtrack album. The extended score and the Steelbook had the sketchbook.
Gotcha.
On the second disc, and which is cool. Because when I was listening to the sketchbook, there's a track that's in Man of Steel, and I just never heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
that is, this is my world, you are my world at BVS.
Oh.
Like the musical piece that plays when he, it's the ba ba bum bum. It's the one like when he's like flying with a kryptonite spear, and then he finally stabs Doomsday with it, and like it's that big musical crescendo that makes me freaking cry like a baby every time I watch that scene. Because when he says, "This is my world, you are my world," but there's that musical crescendo that happens as like Doomsday and Doomsday and Superman are both dying.
Yes.
That you actually hear in Man of Steel, but it's like a moment here, a moment there. And I remember listening to it when I was going to LA for the Full Circle event, and I heard it in the sketchbook, and I was like, "What?
That's awesome." One thing I wish that with all the special features and stuff we can do for movies, I wish there was a way to watch a film without dialogue and without sound effects, where it's just you're watching the picture with the score.
They used to do that, actually.
Because there's certain movies, and one is I think the Star Wars prequels would benefit and be really neat to watch like that because Williams' music and everything. But I think would be really emotionally powerful to watch with just the score. And speaking of the great, amazing man who
John
scored
Williams.
my childhood, the man who scored, I mean,
everything I watched as a kid.
Yeah, and still do. Like from Jaws to Indiana Jones to Superman to Home Alone,
Star Wars, Hook.
The Superman March by John Williams is the last one I have on my list for today.
I mean, iconic is the word.
Iconic. I mean, he set the template for like the power of the march, and even in his music, so it does have remnants of music that was from the Fleischer and the George Reeves series. He just made it more powerful.
Well, because he had the freaking London Symphony Orchestra to play it.
I mean, that helps, But I will like his score. His theme starts with the bum 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 bum. I actually am a really big fan of how John Ottman did it in Superman Returns.
See, that is interesting because I have a composer friend who hates the way John Ottman did it in Superman Returns because he found that the orchestration of it is so thin in Superman Returns.
I can agree with that. I like how it starts with the boom 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 boom. Like it's like the strings like dun, 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 dun. Like it doesn't start with the soft build but I mean, this is one of those songs that you hear it, you automatically feel the character, and once again, you can put any image of Superman to this music, and it fits and it feels right. Doesn't matter what Superman it is, it feels right.
However, can I bring up the devil's advocate point? Is
sure,
but do we have to always have it though?
I think that it's an interesting debate because I've said that if you did, why not reorchestrate it, or change it up, much like, not for better or worse, what they did with Wonder Woman's theme that we talked about, but do something like drop the key, change the key, change the instrumentation or something to make it fit with the mood or whatever you're going for. Because a lot of people use the argument, why isn't the Superman theme like the James Bond theme? You have a different actor, a different reboot of James Bond, but you still have that same theme. Why can't we do that with Superman?
Actually, and I actually literally just Friday night had this conversation. But an interesting thing though is that James Bond's theme has been there literally since the beginning of that character on screen. There was, which is funny though because talking about that theme gets reorchestrated all the time. The original version of that theme isn't even my favorite version of that theme. My favorite version is David Arnold's reorchestration for Casino Royale.
I've never really sat down and really picked the different ones apart.
You should do that. It's really interesting. Even David Arnold, because David Arnold, except for Goldeneye, David Arnold did all the Pierce Brosnan movies and then did the first 2 of Craig.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting that you can go back and listen to Monty Norman's original version for Dr. No. And then you can listen to all the various versions through all the different actors. But listen to the track. The name's Bond, James Bond. It's the final track on the Casino Royale soundtrack. Because that's also kind of the irony of that film, that you get to the end of a 2.5-hour movie. Like 2.5, 2:45. Casino Royale's long.
Yeah, it is.
And you don't realize, because the movie is so compelling, the movie is so good, that you don't realize 2 things haven't happened for 2.5 hours. For 2.5 hours of that movie, he hasn't said the line, and you haven't heard the song. Because he's not Bond yet. He doesn't become Bond until the very end of the movie. And that's when he says the line, and as soon as he says the line, that's when the theme kicks in. And it plays over the end credits.
Yeah, I just grabbed that song to listen to.
Oh, good, because you should. And it's my favorite rearrangement and orchestration of that theme. So I think your point about John Williams' Superman March is an interesting one that no one has said yet. Like, no one has presented that to me as an argument. I would just say, when people want to use the Bond theme as an example, I think, however, the problem with that as an argument, if I'm going to poke holes in it, is that theme has literally been there since the first movie that Bond was ever on screen.
And the
Superman had been on screen before with different themes, and that theme really belongs to Christopher Reeve's iteration of the character, because every other iteration of Superman has gotten their own theme.
And that's kind of like, that's where I say I go back and forth, because it's the most famous and prominent, but yet every version of Superman does get their theme. Just like with Batman, every version of Batman gets their theme. Now, Elfman, you can, like I said, it's kind of in the same way, the most famous, where it feels like Batman for all Batman, but you can't take the Dark Knight theme and put it behind Keaton and really make it feel right.
No, because that's Bale's theme.
Exactly. So it's like, I understand the argument for the Superman theme, but at the same time, I'm like, I also like having the theme fit the version of the character.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer for Henry Cavill's Superman it's my favorite. I mean, this John Williams is like the classic. It's the most iconic, but the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel, that's my favorite Superman theme song.
And I love everything. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of funny because, you know, people want to say that, but, you know, what's probably the most iconic Batman thing? I'm sorry, my kids know the 66 theme better than anything.
I mean,
like,
it's
right?
a fair
I
argument.
mean, First Flight was the song I used for my posing routine in my bodybuilding show a handful of years ago.
So, I mean, I think that's things that we can all have. It's like, I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard this story, but I love this story. But a kid once walked up to Frank Miller at a con, at a Q&A. You know, he was on stage. I think it was like San Diego Comic-Con. And asked Frank Miller, what's the best version of Batman? Have you guys heard this story?
Mm-mm.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So the kid asks Frank Miller, what's the best version of Batman? And Frank Miller looked at him and said, which one's your favorite? That's the answer.
True.
I love that response.
Because, I mean, I think that all these characters are subject to subjectivity of what you identify with it and what's your favorite version. For back to what we said about how we have a love for Batman Forever as a film. There's something baked into that movie that's part of who we are and grew up with.
I mean, have you guys ever heard the Superman blessing?
No.
I love doing this with my kids. I learned it at my church. You know, to get the kids to say a blessing, you know, before we have a meal. The favorite one in our family is the Superman blessing.
Please tell.
Okay, you stick your arms up in the air like you're
Uh-huh.
flying, and you go, "Thank you, God, for giving us food. Thank you, God, for giving us food, for the friends we meet and the food we eat. Thank you, God. Amen."
Oh, I'm so getting my wife to sing this, and I'm going to put it as a track on our every episode we do. I think
And the
For
thing
real.
is that there's hand movements, because as you say, "Thank you, God," you stick your arms up in the air, straight up and down. And, "Thank you, God, for giving us food." You drop them. "Thank you, God." Stick your arms up for giving us food. And then when you do "for the friends we meet," tilt your arms to one side. "And the food we eat," tilt your hands to the other side. "Thank you, God." Straight up and down. And then when you say "Amen," you put your fists on your hips in the Superman pose.
So I'm so doing this tomorrow for breakfast with the kids.
You do it. Do it.
I'll send you an email afterwards.
I
That's
feel like
great.
okay, by the way, if you want to see me do this, if you want to support Squadcast Media, go to patreon.com/Squadcast Media. $5 a month gets you exclusive RSS feed of over 400 pieces of content. And I have a solo show on there called Scott Shots. I did a video review of the limited edition Steelbook collection of Christopher Reeve Superman movies in 4K. And I start off the video, hand motions and all, doing the Superman blessing.
That's awesome.
In
It's excellent.
sepia, by the way.
Wow. That's awesome.
Oh man.
I commit, man. I
yeah,
commit.
right. For real.
As you should.
I mean, the theme song for Superman, I mean, it goes hand in hand with what always comes up, especially when we're talking to people. And, I don't think we even asked, but are you Trunks or no Trunks for Superman? And before you answer, I just want to, it's like with My Adventures of Superman, they gave us actually both. The suit that he got from Jor-El was a bodysuit, blue, no trunks, and then Martha Kent gave him the trunks for his suit.
Which I thought was a really lame reason to give him the trunks. I'm sorry, that was lame. If you're at one, I think way too much gets made of that argument. I think it's
It does.
stupid.
It
I
does.
think it's
I do
stupid.
too.
That's why
but-
we ask. Like,
I know.
Yeah, we want to hear.
But if you're going to ask me my preference, I'm a no trunks kind of guy.
my thing is, I've said this, live action, I prefer no trunks. If it's in comics, it's fine because it's comics. You kind of roll with it. But I mean, Batman's done great with no trunks for how long? And now we want to make a big deal that Superman doesn't have trunks. I mean, come on, people.
I actually have hanging on my wall, I'm looking at it right now, is a poster print of the cover from Superman Unchained #1.
Nice.
Remember that,
Mhm.
Jim? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's signed by Jim Lee, by the way. And
I got it signed by Scott Snyder.
Oh yeah, I have a volume 1 trade paperback collection of Court of Owls signed by Scott Snyder, personalized to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Scott's so cool.
Scott, I've yet to meet Scott Snyder,
Oh,
but
he's awesome to talk to.
no, he seems like such an awesome guy to talk to, and it's so great because I love that I literally own every issue, every variant of his Batman run from the New 52.
Nice.
And because I was just there from day one, not knowing that it was going to become like this. You love collecting runs of books before they become iconic, just because you were there collecting the books. It wasn't like you went out and bought them because they were iconic. It's like, no, I was just buying them because this is the book. And then they've become so, like, Scott Snyder's run on Batman is going to be one of those runs we talk about.
Yes.
And then to have all those books, and then to have, a signed trade paperback personalized to me. I mean, I got a lot of cool crap like that. I mean, I've shown it. Like, I got to meet Mike Grell. Like, that was awesome. I have a Black Canary pencil sketch commission by him. Like, I asked for a Black Canary, and he did it. And there's a picture of me the day he handed it to me, and he's autographed like all my issues of the Longbow Hunters.
Nice.
And so like I love the opportunities that I've had. But going back to the whole Trunks no Trunks thing, I just that cover for Superman Unchained #1 is a badass cover.
It is.
and the fact that it hangs on the wall to my left every time I podcast. It's like I've got that on my left, and then I've got, right now on my wall, I've got like the poster from the first Snyder Con that's got like Deborah, Zach, and Larry Fong autographed, and Larry Fong even wrote Scott with an exclamation point on it. It's kind of
nice.
So it's just, I don't know. I like the look. I understand people who argue about the Trunks, like saying they like it breaking up the color, and I could understand that. It was kind of like when Rebirth happened and they didn't give him the red boots. It's like, no, you need red boots. You do need red boots.
But there was
like,
a reason for that in the story. Just saying.
I know there was a reason. I read the freaking books. Okay.
But no, I agree with you. When they first released the picture, I was like, what? I'm like, even me, I was like, okay, I love blue. It's my favorite color, but that's a lot of blue.
Yeah.
That first image I saw of all the new 52 characters, like Jim Lee's Justice League, I thought that was amazing. I actually have a magnet of that on my fridge.
You mean it's awesome how I have that in front of me in two different places, and Wonder Woman's wearing some sweet black pants, but yet never appeared in those pants?
Yes.
Yeah. I actually have that poster, like that it's like you can look and you see Pandora and everybody else in it. But yeah, just I have some
cool stuff.
I have some. Oh yeah. One of the coolest things is I have a Jerry Robinson sketch of Batman.
Well, that's
dang.
Neat. And I have a Kevin Conroy autographed art print, and I have things. I have things.
Scott lives an exciting life.
Yeah,
I did. No, that's the thing. I live a really boring life. I just have a lot of cool crap.
So here's my wrap up question for you, Scott. As we come to a conclusion, we've talked about our list of themes and what's important to us. With Superman Legacy on the horizon, who would you like to see score it?
You know what? This is actually going to be... It's not a cop-out answer. It's a legitimate answer. I would like it to be a no-name. Give me somebody new that I've never heard before.
I won't consider that a cop-out answer because I feel like in a way, we need fresh blood. We've made jokes about how these composers, get shifted around and some of the stuff starts to sound the same or doesn't pop. Years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have said Michael Giacchino. And that's because I was riding high really off his Jurassic World score, where I felt he did a great way of incorporating Williams' type of music. But I love what he's doing with the Batman. And I'm not opposed to like someone coming up and having a fresh take that feels right for the character. I mean, I would love it because, you look around and a lot of times you start to see the same names on everything. We made the Brian Tyler jokes earlier,
I mean, when I was growing up, it was either Williams, Elfman, Silvestri, James Horner.
Yeah.
There's a theme.
Howard
Rocketeer.
Shore.
Oh, the Rocketeer theme.
Rocketeer is so good. That score is just beautiful to just listen to and relax.
Oh, God, it is so gorgeous to listen to. But that's the thing. It's like, I want to learn a new name. It's kind of, I like there being a new name that suddenly becomes like the name I would look for. Like with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross being on Mutant Mayhem. It's like, I remember the first time I stood up and took notice of them was when they did The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with David Fincher. And they'd done The Social Network and Gone Girl. I just hadn't seen those yet. And so, but their rearrangement of the Immigrant Song for the opening title sequence of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was like
really good.
Dang. And then they did the Watchmen show on HBO.
Which was really good.
And they did Soul for Pixar.
Which was hilarious. I mean, like in a weird, dark way, because like Trent Reznor. But I lost my train of thought. Oh,
But the point is that I'm glad you don't think it's a cop out, but it's like, no, don't give me someone I've already heard. Give me someone new, and let them do something. Let them play.
yeah. I mean, we were saying like we see the same people. Oh, and I was going to say,
Well, just for DC movies, you got Rupert, who did Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and Wonder Woman is memorable, and Aquaman wasn't.
I would say this: if I was a producer on the films and stuff, I think a composer, for me, a composer is iconic as an actor or a director. In the sense, like, okay, you're doing this character. I don't want you on this character. I want somebody else because I don't want there to be similarities in the themes.
Well, it's
in the
kind of like why
styles,
Hans asked for Junkie to come on for BVS after he did the Dark Knight trilogy. He was like, Junkie, I need you to do the Batman stuff. I've already done Batman.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I wish Hans hadn't touched Wonder Woman, or they, they just let Rupert do it, and then they had got someone else for Aquaman, so that these characters have their own sonic identities. And you're talking about scores, like you mentioned the Rocketeer, and the one that popped in my head is one of the most beautiful pieces of music I think has ever been scored in a movie. Often gets forgotten is Casper's Lullaby in Casper. I used to play that for my kids when I put them in their cribs at night. Like it was on a repeat. Like it's soothing. And I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever. And it's beautiful, but yet haunting at the same time. When we're talking about scores, so I thought I'd bring it up, but it is just beautiful. And it just doesn't get talked about in conversations with scores because the movie gets forgotten.
Hey, I remember Christina Ricci in that movie.
I'm about to say, dude, I've
I
talked
was
about
gonna say, it doesn't. I was gonna say, we don't forget about that movie. Nobody here.
For reasons.
James, I just applied for press passes for Cincinnati Comic Expo, and Christina Ricci's going to be there this year.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah. Okay.
Let's
so that's what we're
let's
gonna
get those. Let's cross out. Yeah. Let's
cross our T's and dot our lowercase J's.
Yeah.
All right, Scott. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a blast, man.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I mean, I can talk, so it's always nice when people want to listen.
So can I.
Yeah. Well, we listen. We listen a lot, actually. So it was great to have you. When he told me that you were coming on, and when I saw you said that you wanted to do it on the post, I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was really excited to have you on.
Well, I think it's kind of fun. I don't think people realize. I mean, I studied music in college. Like I was a musical theater major.
That's
I took
awesome.
theory classes. I've played instruments. Like I love music. My CD collection is like, people are like, what's your favorite kind of music? It's like, it's more like, what kind of music do I not like? Because, literally
That's a shorter list.
It's a much shorter list because, you look at my collection and it's like, oh yeah, I got some Sinatra, I got some Black Eyed Peas, I got some Puccini, it's like,
sometimes you just feel like just enjoying the sonic sounds of whatever.
Exactly. And so, and then, Johnny Cash for a little spice, it's what happens. And I love music so much, and it's just, it's fun to talk about it.
Well, we're glad you were here, and thank you. And everyone, we recommend checking out Scott's podcast. I will have them in the show notes for you to check out. Check that, and remember,
part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic, and we will grade this movie using a report card-like scale A through F, We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Before we start this episode of Krypton Report, I want to take a moment and just give a shout out here to our Patreon. I know what you're thinking. Gosh, everyone's asking for money, and I get it. But our Patreon is only $1. $1 a month that helps us keep the podcast going. And what we do is we try to find interesting shows and topics and whatever we want to talk about. We've done, as of this little thing, our last recordings were on the Scream series. Brian and Tyler, that's me, do our own show where we record in the car, and it's kind of funny. And we talk about pop culture or whatever is going on. We also have the Supernatural podcast we've been reworking. It's taken some time just because of life. But we do movie commentaries as well. It's something that James and I have done, what we used to do on the main show that we've started doing here. So for $1 a month on our Patreon, you can get those shows. There's at least 4 a month. Also, there's my movie pitch show that I do. But also, what we want is if you're a Patreon, you can come on. You can come on the main show if you want. Or if there's something you want to come on and talk about, we can do it as a Patreon special. So all I want is for $1 a month, think about chipping in, joining our Patreon, and you have a voice to be a part of things. Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/KryptonReport.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough Super Talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/KryptonReport. You find all of our